So in this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to build a Yunli team, and we're also going to be comparing and clearing some misconceptions in general, so you very well understand based on what we're going to be building her teams. So first of all, the first thing we need to understand is going to be aggro, and kind of what it is, we're just going to quickly hover over that so we're both on par, because I'm going to need it to explain something. So first of all, we all know that Yunli needs to be hit as much as possible for you to maximize her potential. Aggro or taunt or whatever it's called in Honkai style is pretty much your chance of being hit. Like when an enemy attacks, like which character they choose. The higher a character's aggro is or taunt, the higher chance they're going to be the one chosen to be hit. Obviously, you'd want to maximize that for Yunli so she's hit as much as possible. Now, for us to do that, let's first understand how it works very quick. First of all, every character type in the game has their own aggro. Like Preservation, for example, they have the highest aggro and then so on. It ranges from 150 to 75. The list is going to be in front of you. How the chance of a character being hit in the team is calculated like this pretty much. You're just going to add in all of the aggro on your team. So let's say you have 4 characters. Let's say 1 hunt character and then 2 harmony characters and 1 preservation character. From the table I showed you, we're just going to add in all of their aggro, and then we're just going to divide the character's aggro type by the total aggro. So we're going to gain these results. Obviously, as you guys can see, the preservation character is going to have the higher chance of being hit because they just naturally have the higher aggro value in the whole team. And then as you can notice in the table, preservation characters have more aggro than abundance character, and both of these can be counted as sustains. So does that mean we should use preservation over abundance characters for Yunli? The answer is going to be no. Technically, this is true because the higher the aggro of a character, the higher their chance of being hit. That means Yunli's chance is going to be technically lower. But the difference between preservation and abundance is just going to be 50. So in general, it's not really going to matter as much. It's like a 5% difference in general, which is not something you really want to worry about. Mainly, you just want to use the sustain character that just fits with your team the best, whether it's with other teammates, whether it's that you can use weapons on them. For example, with the abundance characters, you can use that 4-star light cone, the Quid Pro. That light cone, for example, is just going to give any character with less than 50% energy 8 energy every turn. With Yunli, her maximum energy is going to be 240, and her ultimate is only going to cost 120. So pretty much all of the time, you're going to have less than 50% energy, which is pretty good. That means you're almost guaranteed to have extra energy every turn of your abundance character. So that's just like one thing. For example, if you're lacking energy on Yunli, you might pick an abundance character so you can use this light cone on them. If you're using like Robin as a buffer, then in that case, using Aventurine might be pretty good because he's just going to synergize pretty well with Robin and give you like free shields with follow-up attacks and stuff like that. It just depends on a lot of things, but pretty much you just want to use either sustain that works for your team. The fact is, whether they're preservation or abundance or whatever doesn't really matter as much because the aggro is not going to be affected as much by this fact. What's going to affect your aggro though is going to be something kind of interesting, which a lot of people don't usually worry about, which is Yunli's placement in the team. Because what I explained before of the chances of being hit, this is the chances of being hit for like a single target. If an enemy hits a single target, these will be the chances. The thing is, a lot of enemies just hit multiple targets at once. That means if they hit a target of your teammates, the teammates next to them are also going to be hit. And that's going to make quite a bit of difference. The thing is, you just don't want to put your Yunli on like the far side, either left or right, because in that case, she can only be hit if the enemy targets her or the character next to her, which is only going to be one character. But if you put her on the 3rd or 2nd slot, she can be hit if the character hits her or the character next to her from the right or the left. So it's a much higher chance of being hit, and that's actually just going to matter a lot. So just make sure when you put your team comp, just put her on the 2nd or 3rd slot. That's it. This is something that's going to matter quite a bit, and it's just going to make your chances of being hit much higher without even doing anything pretty much. Obviously, it depends on the enemy and how they hit characters, but in general, it's just going to increase your chances. So make sure you do that. Now, knowing that, let's move on to her teams and look into it. So the baseline of a Yunli team is going to look something like this. You want to sustain, obviously, because she's going to be hit a lot and you're going to be losing HP quick. And yes, she can sustain herself a little bit, but it's simply not going to be enough. So don't get fooled into thinking you don't need to sustain. You definitely do need to sustain. The next character is going to be Yunli, obviously on the team. As I said, place her 2nd or 3rd. Your next character is going to be a buffer. You just want something usually like a harmony, whatever, any character that can buff your damage. And then finally, your last character is generally going to be a flex. You can add in a 2nd buffer, for example, that can also buff your Yunli. You can add in a debuffer for the team. You can add in another like DPS, for example, if you're lacking single target damage, or if you're you're lacking AoE damage, depending on what it is, you can just put a flex in the team. That's it. So this is what her team's gonna look like. Now let's start with each like side and explain the options. First of all, starting off with the sustain. The best sustain in my opinion is just gonna be Ho-Ho, because she's gonna be healing you enough. She's also abundance, which doesn't really matter as much as I explained before, but it's on a good side, so it's cool. And then she's gonna be giving you a huge amounts of energy, so she's gonna make sure your ultimate is gonna be on a very good uptime, which is the best thing Ho-Ho can offer in this team. So yeah, in my opinion, Ho-Ho is probably gonna be one of the best sustains you can use with Yunli, just because of the energy regeneration. Another good abundance option is gonna be Lynx. The best thing about Lynx is that she can increase your aggro if you heal Yunli with her skill, and she's gonna increase your aggro by a lot actually. She's gonna increase your chance of being hit by a huge amount. It's gonna matter a lot. So if you don't have many sustains, especially if you don't have her signature weapon, if you have her signature light cone, then it's not really gonna matter as much because you're gonna have enough aggro anyways. But without her signature light cone, Lynx is definitely gonna matter and increase your chances of being hit by a huge amount. So Lynx is definitely gonna be a good option, especially as I said before, if you don't have her signature light cone. If you do though, I wouldn't really say go for Lynx because her sustain itself is not really gonna be super good and maybe not enough in sometimes, depending on how built you have her and stuff like that. But she's definitely not gonna be as comfortable as like 5-star sustains. That's the only problem with Lynx. But if you don't have like 5-star sustains or you're lacking the signature light cone for Yunli, in that case Lynx can definitely be a good option, especially if you have her well built. Then she's definitely gonna be able to sustain you enough, like barely enough, but it's gonna be pretty good. And for the extra aggro, she's definitely gonna be worth it. So yeah, Lynx is also up there in the best sustains for Yunli. And then finally, the last possible sustain in my opinion is gonna be Aventurine. Yunli is pretty much gonna be like a follow-up attacker, and with his synergy with follow-up attackers is gonna work pretty well. She's gonna be able to help him gain stacks, and is gonna be giving her the shield and being like skill point positive in the team, which is super good. He's also gonna be able to contribute his own damage for the team, which is a considerable amount of damage. So yeah, Aventurine is definitely gonna be a very good option because she's a follow-up attacker. And the more follow-up attackers you have on the team, if you have more, as we're gonna see in a little bit, the better Aventurine is gonna be. Other than that, really, you can use any sustain, but you know, these are obviously the best options for the reasons I listed before. Now, moving on to your second slot, which is the buffer. Her best buffer or harmony in general is gonna be Robin, in my opinion, just because of her synergy with follow-up attackers. She's gonna be able to buff you and also buff your whole team, especially in like a dual DPS team, depending on which flex you went for. So yeah, Robin is definitely gonna be pretty good. She's gonna be dealing that extra damage, buffing you, giving you that crit damage and everything, attack, whatever, everything you need pretty much, and default attack synergy. So I think Robin is probably gonna be your best sustain. If you have her, then you probably should use her with Yunli, or not sustain, buffer, sorry. The second best buffer in my opinion is probably gonna be Ting Yun, again just because of the whole buff and stuff, but also she's gonna be able to give you energy, which is pretty important with Yunli. So any character that can give you energy is gonna be good with Yunli. Ting Yun can give you a decent amount of energy and also can work pretty good as a harmony character, so she's gonna be buffing you all the way and also giving you enough energy, which is pretty good. So yeah, Ting Yun is probably gonna be a very good option with Yunli too. Another option is gonna be Sparkle. She might not always be the best option depending on the team, but in some teams you're definitely gonna lack skill points, so having Sparkle is definitely gonna be pretty good. She's gonna make your team very comfortable in skill points, plus she's obviously gonna be a very good buffer in general, the crit damage, the action advance and stuff like that, so she's definitely gonna be a very good option. For the buffers, I think those are generally it for me. Obviously you can use any buffers, they can work, like Hanya for example, or debuffers like Pela as for defense shred, or like Ron May for resistant penetration, whatever. A lot of them can work, but those are the best in my opinion for the reasons I listed before. For the flex slot, you can use two of the harmony buffers, like Robin and Ting Yun for example, or like Robin and Pela, whatever. So you can use just another buffer or debuffer on your flex slot, and that's gonna make her like a Yunli hyper carry team. Or in general, you can use like a second DPS or damage dealer of some sort. So if you're lacking like single target, you can use another hunt character like March 7th for example, or I don't know, whatever. You can use another buffer like Topaz for example, just for the follow-up attacks. You can use her with Clara for example, or whatever. Any second damage dealer that can work with her, you know, you gotta look at them and see if they work, can be used in her teams. And in this type of team, Robin is definitely gonna be like the better option for support because she's gonna be able to buff both your DPSs, which is pretty good. Now that we know all of that, let's just throw in some team examples so you guys understand. First team example is that let's say you have Ho-Ho, she's gonna be the sustain, then you're gonna have Yunli next to her in the second slot, and then let's say you have Robin, and then let's say for the flex, this team is gonna be kind of like skill point hungry. Let's say in that case, you're gonna have Sparkle as your second buffer and also flex. This is gonna be a very good team. Yunli is gonna be the hyper carry. So yeah. The second team, let's say you have Lynx as a sustain, Yunli as your main DPS. Let's say you have like Robin as a support too, and then for the last slot, let's say you have Tingyun. Lynx is gonna be able to sustain you, increase your aggro. Tingyun is gonna be helping you out with the energy, and then Robin is your buffer. So yeah, very decent team too, and sort of like free to play friendly, except for Robin. And then finally, let's say like a team where you have a second damage dealer, a dual DPS team. Let's say you have like the sustain. Let's say Ho-Ho again, and then say you have like Yunli and then Clara. They can work together pretty well. I explained that in one of my previous videos. They don't have really to be like competitors. You can just put them in the same team and they're gonna work. And for the last slot, as I said, Robin is gonna be kind of necessary here because she's one of the few characters who can buff your like both DPSs at the same time. So she's definitely gonna be your best support here. Or if you can't, you can use any support like Ron May, or even like a single support is gonna work. But yeah, this is a team example. You just want to make combinations of the examples I gave before, and you're gonna end up with a good Yunli team. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.